I spent 7 years avoiding exercise because of foot pain, shin pain, knee pain, back pain, shoulder pain, basically everything. And it wasn't until I figured out this 2 to 3 step process that all of that went away and I could start enjoying my body again. So my process is 2 steps, 2 main steps, as I said. A third one that I also think is quite important. So we'll start at the least crucial to the most. So the first one that I would recommend is to change footwear. These are obviously not ideal. These are comfort shoes at home. If I was to do any kind of exercise in these, I would surely hurt myself. Growing up, I always wore those really cushy sneakers or runners or joggers, whatever you want to call them. They have the really fat sole on them, and generally, like most of those shoes, it goes from highest point to lowest point. So it has like a heel drop, as it's called. Nowadays, I wear no shoes at all a lot of the time when I'm running, if I'm on grass. But at the very least, I will wear shoes with a 0 drop. So the sole is the same height the whole way along. And depending on what surface I'm running on or what activity I'm engaging in, I will change the amount of cushion or the amount of padding that the shoe has. Sometimes I just wear thin, like thong type. Yeah, thongs. The name is escaping me at the moment. Other times I'll wear thicker trail running type shoes if I'm going on longer runs or more aggressive terrain. That's basically it for footwear. I did the whole orthotics thing from the recommendation of a podiatrist and whatever. Those never work and never will work. Complete waste of money. The real needle moving changes are the footwear, the stretching, which I'll get into in a second, the movement, and the diet is the last and most important thing. So next is the movement. I would say if you don't have a stretching or movement practice, then you're shooting yourself in the foot, even more so than just putting up with the pain. I had plantar fasciitis for a number of years, and now I can mitigate it almost to being non-existent using these modalities. So currently, I'm stretching every morning. It's rare that I miss a day. And I have 4 different routines that I cycle through. A lot of them have foot-focused stretches. So I'm doing things such as a big toe stretch, where one can work up to sitting with their full body weight on their toes, and they're getting a really good stretch. Probably can't see with the slides on, but a really good stretch through the toes here and under the foot. And this big tendon here, that is the issue for a lot of people. That gets really tight and it feels like someone's cutting it with a knife. If you suffer from plantar fasciitis, then you know what I'm talking about. So stretches like that, it's also a lot to do with the knees, the shins, the calves. I do a lot of stretching for as well. A lot of hip stuff. Basically, if the feet are out of alignment and not getting the support they need, or conversely are getting too much support, then the feet basically forget how to work properly. Therefore they get tight, and then everything else upwards from there gets tight and out of whack. So fix the foundation, everything else will start to correct itself. Then we have to make sure that our training is on point. I'm certified in a modality from the ATG group, Athletic Truth Group, made by Ben Patrick, knees over toes guy, you may have heard of him. Keegan coach as well, and a number of other world-renowned coaches. That doesn't matter at all. What matters is that the system works, and I used it to help reverse my shin splints and Osgood-Schlatter's disease in my knees, as well as hip and back problems. I injured myself multiple times in the gym, deadlifting and whatnot. The diet plays a big role in that as well, which I'll touch on later. But one of the main premises of this training system is the principle of structural balance. A lot of training these days is modeled off the Schwarzenegger approach, bodybuilding. It's lots of volume, it's very strenuous, and it's only very specific exercises that are designed for making a person bigger, for bodybuilding. Generally, these exercises don't lend themselves to athletic performance and injury prevention. So when I say structural balance, what I'm talking about is making sure that the front of the shins, or the tibialis anterior, which is the main muscle that allows the foot to dorsiflex, that is, bring the toes closer to the shins and the knees, that needs to be as strong as the backside of the calves. Generally, if people work any of the lower leg muscles, they're only working the calves, creating an imbalance. When imbalances are created, stress is created on the antagonist muscle or the opposite muscle, and that's when injuries occur. Likewise with the feet, nobody's really training the feet at all. Most people are only training thighs or quads and they're not giving the hamstrings any attention. We see a lot of hamstring injuries in professional sport. And even when they are training the hamstrings, it's not done correctly. This principle applies to pretty much any muscle. A lot of people in the bodybuilding world are training biceps and triceps. The next principle to look at there is this principle of short range versus long range. So most of the time the exercises will be the same or similar, but now we can look at it through a different lens where we might be targeting the same muscles, but we can change the angle of the joint. For a bicep curl, say, we can bring the wrist behind the body and work the biceps here. So if I'm laying down on a bench, or am I working the biceps in a preacher curl position, this would be short range because the angle of the shoulder, the elbow and the wrist in relation to the body is different than it's back here. If you know anything about anatomy, you know the bicep tendon inserts up here and inserts, or the origin up here, sorry, and inserts down just past the elbow. Slightly different for everybody. That's under more stress in this position back here than it is here, resulting in a different training effect. For example, this applies to every muscle in the body and every joint. So we need to make sure all of these are in balance, and there are certain strength ratios that we want to hit for these muscles to make sure everything is optimal. For performance, even if you're not a professional athlete, we want these to be on lock so that we don't experience any pain, even if we just want to go for a long walk or a recreational run. Charles Poliquin was the coach. He's passed now, but he is the coach, I still believe, that holds the record for most athletes coached to Olympic medals. He's the one that devised this structural balance principle and the ratios. So basically, if someone knows how much they can bench press, then there are numbers that need to be hit for certain shoulder exercises to reach that optimal ratio. The last thing, and the one I'll spend the most time on, is the diet. So I've got my notes here so I don't forget anything. I went from eating basically anything, a bodybuilder style diet, I'll call it, after my initial foray into veganism, which didn't last long because I had no idea what I was doing. I don't see myself as a vegan per se, or the diet as vegan. It's just I'm eating according to natural law and natural principle and my biology. So if I was to describe my diet, it's a low-fat, fruit-based raw vegan diet based on whole, fresh, ripe, raw organic plants. I changed that statement to whole, fresh, ripe, raw organic fruits because I don't think plants are supposed to be eaten. The plants are providing the food. And when I eat those things in the right quantities, then ultimate health and athletic performance result. How this relates to pain relief, which is why you're watching this video, is because these foods, mostly fruits, are shifting the acid-alkaline balance. My body is acidic by function and alkaline by nature. So a lot of functions in the body produce acid wastes. And the only real way, or the highest ROI way I can change that or combat that is by eating alkalizing foods. Pain is essentially acidosis in localized areas. When it becomes systemic, it's known as something like fibromyalgia. Effectively, it's the lymph system, which is essentially the waste system of the body before it gets filtered and returned to the blood, which may or may not be true, but that's up for debate in some circles. The more alkalizing foods I eat, the less pain I'm going to feel. From my experience, that is absolutely the truth. I don't feel any pain anywhere, really, anymore. And when I do, it subsides extremely quickly. And because I'm doing all the supportive stretches and exercises and strengthening myself in the right areas, nothing hangs around for too long. I don't wake up in the morning anymore and feel like I've been run over by a car. I don't have sleep in my eyes. My tongue isn't coated in white or yellow stuff. Everything just feels good and works well. Another main reason for this is because naturally, if I was to put all the fruits and vegetables together in a bag, mix them up, and calculate the carbs, fats, and proteins in a ratio as it pertains to calories, it'd be roughly about 90% from carbs, and then the rest would be split between proteins and fat. Dr. Doug Graham in the early 2000s wrote a book called The 80-10-10 Diet, where those numbers aren't a goal, but it's something to be strived for. They're more minimums to be hit. So a diet of whole, fresh, ripe, raw organic fruits, where I get a minimum of my calories from carbohydrates, so fruit, and then a maximum of my calories coming from fat and protein of 10% each. It has been measured in studies and in the textbooks, if one knows how to look or where to look, that when dietary fat and protein exceed 10%, predictable health decline happens. If you don't believe me, maybe ask yourself why everyone's so overweight and sick. Bringing this back to pain relief and physical pain, proteins are built on nitrogens and the other acidic minerals such as chlorine, phosphorus, and sulfur, things of this nature. When I'm eating a lot of these, a lot being, in my opinion, above 10% of calories from protein, then I'm going to start feeling it. And I certainly do. When I eat higher percentages of fat and protein, more so protein, which would mostly come from nuts and seeds, I feel it instantly. And I also feel it in my kidneys, which take a lot of the brunt of protein breakdown. It's no wonder a lot of people have kidney problems because they're eating animal products 3 times a day. When I eat high amounts of protein, my body has to buffer that, and it uses mainly one of the alkaline minerals, calcium, to do that. And the largest sources of calcium are in the bones and in the teeth. This is why so many people suffer from osteoporosis and similar. Their bones get porous and brittle, and they can even break limbs or joints just from stepping off a curb, as my dad felt and experienced before he recently passed away. This happens to all kinds of people. The average for bone density is -1, and that's on a scale from -5 to 50 plus. So the bar is pretty low, and it's quite obvious to me why that's the case. So when I remove these foods from my diet, and I'm just focusing on maximizing the amount of whole, fresh, ripe, raw organic fruits I'm eating, then I don't have to worry about calcium being taken from my bones because I have sufficient calcium in the diet, and there's no need for excess calcium taken from my bones and teeth because the protein just isn't there. It's not to say that it's a low protein diet, as in there's a problem, it's too low. It's just a relatively lower amount of protein, because a natural, or I should say a normal diet that a regular person eats is high in protein. There is a problem, it's too high. What other factors can contribute to chronic pain or this acidosis principle? Down here, I've got cooked foods, which most unnatural foods that aren't fruit need to be cooked, and that therefore acidifies them further. Got these mollies flying around at the moment, getting through my socks. So basically all of these cooked foods and proteins are built or have a nitrogen foundation, and nitrogen is acidic once digested and broken down. So it's really just a biochemistry principle. Like, one can't argue with it. It's either, the food is either alkaline or acidic once broken down, and that's contributing massively to how a person feels in their day-to-day life, and contributes to aging and what people think of as aging, really. Heated fats as well, all animal foods, grains, all of these things need to be cooked, remember. More than a small amount of nuts and seeds, as I alluded to. I certainly feel it when I eat more than a small amount. Poor food combining as well, whether it's cooked food or raw food, is going to contribute. The body is designed to eat one food at a time for optimal digestion. I'm not sure how anybody could argue with that. Every animal on the planet pretty much does that. I certainly feel the best when I eat one thing at a time. Smoking, of course, drugs, meds, caffeine, alcohol, insufficient rest and sleep, sustained stress, anger, fear, negative emotions, it all contributes. Funnily enough, those are all the leading indicators or precursors to osteoporosis. So you can look this stuff up for yourself and get back to me with your findings. I'm not pretending to be on a high horse or anything like that, or saying that I'm right or wrong. This is all stuff I've experienced myself. I spent several years, as I said at the start, struggling through chronic pain. I was extremely active as a kid, and it really sucked not to be able to do anything with my body. Then I started asking questions about what the mainstream was telling me about fitness and diet and health. I started changing things and found the way forward to a pain-free life. So if you want to find out how to achieve that for yourself, then there'll be a link in the description to book a call with me. We'll have a chat and see if working together to achieve your health and fitness goals is the right thing at this moment. Otherwise, there'll be a link to my group that has all my free resources, basic stretching plans, diet philosophy, things of that nature. You can also book a call within the group there. But basically, if you have any questions or want to work with me, there'll be a way to reach out. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.